Rimuru x Arifureta. Fragments of Soul to be the Strongest by Rimu_Kai. Chapter 3. Before the plot, the sky above the royal castle of Highlight Kingdom was painted in hues of orange and violet, signaling the break of dawn. Wisps of clouds drifted lazily, kissed by the golden morning light, while a cool breeze carried the distant melodies of chirping birds. Below, the royal gardens stretched far and wide, dew-covered leaves glistening like tiny gems under the rising sun. Yet, for the summoned students, this beautiful scenery was far from comforting. The training grounds were vast, an open field reinforced with enchanted stone to withstand even the fiercest of battles. To the sides, racks of wooden weapons lined the walls, while a few knights sparred in the distance, their armor clanking with each movement. Standing before the gathered students was a broad-shouldered man with a rugged face and sharp eyes, Meld Loggins, the captain of the knights. Beside him stood Aiko Hatayama, their teacher, her expression both determined and worried as she observed her students. The entire summoned class was present, from Hajime Nagumo, Kaori Shirasaki, Shizuku Yagashi, Kuki Amanogawa, and even the ever-arrogant Rimuru Nagumo. Meld's gaze swept over them, then, with a firm nod, he spoke. From today onward, you will undergo combat training under my supervision. You may have been summoned as heroes, but power without control is meaningless. Now, each of you, take one of these. His knights passed around 13 by 7 centimeters metal plates, engraved with intricate symbols. As the students received them, confusion spread across their faces. Meld chuckled. That's called a status plate. Consider it your most reliable identification card. As long as you have it, you won't be in any real danger, even if you get lost. Any questions? Silence. The only sound that followed was a loud yawn. All eyes turned toward Rimuru, who lazily stretched his arms, completely unfazed by the serious atmosphere. Meld arched a brow. Tired already? Rimuru smirked. Not really, just bored. Meld sighed but chose to ignore it. All right. Listen up. From now on, we're comrades. No need for formalities. Just call me Meld. Makes things easier for all of us. This was a relief for most students, as using honorifics felt unnatural. Now, Meld continued, drop your blood on the magic circle engraved on the plate. Once you say the words, show status, the plate will register you as the owner, and you'll be able to see your stats. This is one of the many abilities granted by divine artifacts. Divine artifacts? Kuki Amanogawa asked, confused, and several students murmured in agreement. Meld nodded, but before he could explain, Rimuru stepped forward. Divine artifacts are powerful tools that cannot be recreated by modern means. According to this world's legends, they were crafted by gods themselves. The only one they've successfully managed to replicate is this, the status plate. There was a moment of silence. Then, Daisuke Hayama scoffed. Ha! What kind of nonsense is that? You expect us to believe you already know about this world better than the knights themselves? Kuki frowned. Wait, how do you know that, Rimuru? We just got here. Kyutaru crossed his arms. Yeah, stop acting like you're some kind of sage. But their skepticism was shattered when Meld clapped his hands together and said, absolutely correct. That's impressive, Rimuru Nagumo. The entire class froze. What, no way, he was actually right. Kaori, Hajime, and Shizuku exchanged glances. Even Aiko was stunned. Meanwhile, Rimuru simply grinned. Kuki frowned. Seriously, though. How do you know this without reading or finding any information? Rimuru smirked. I have my own ways of gathering information. Better than you, Kuki. Kuki gritted his teeth but decided to ignore the jab. Kyutaru looked just as annoyed, but Shizuku, standing next to Rimuru, chuckled. That was impressive, she admitted. Kaori and Hajime agreed. Hajime, however, couldn't shake the thought. His brother was different from the others. Calm, composed, as if this wasn't new to him. Meld clapped his hands again. All right, now that that's settled, drop your blood onto the plate. The students hesitated, but one by one, they followed the instructions. Hajime, Kaori, Kuki, and Kyutaru all did so without much trouble. However, Shizuku hesitated. Rimuru, noticing this, tilted his head. Need help? She quickly shook her head. No, Before she could finish, Rimuru grabbed the needle from her trembling fingers, gently took her hand, and pressed it against the plate, drawing a single drop of blood. Shizuku flinched, but then realized it didn't hurt. She looked at Rimuru in shock. He smirked. "See, no need to be afraid." Her face turned slightly pink, but she quickly looked away, muttering, Thanks." Watching this scene, Daisuke and his lackeys snickered. "Huh? What's wrong, Rimuru? Scared to drop your own blood?" Rimuru sighed, visibly irritated. "You're really trying to pick a fight this early? Come on, Nagumo, just do it," Daisuke taunted. Rimuru sighed dramatically, then smirked. Without hesitation, he bit into his own finger, drawing a large drop of blood, which splashed onto the plate. The wound healed instantly. The entire group stared. Kaori gasped. "Rimuru, that's..." Hajime's eyes widened. "Don't do something reckless like that." Kuki was angry. Kyutaru was furious. Even Meld looked momentarily stunned. "That's an abnormal healing ability," he muttered. Meanwhile, Rimuru shrugged. "What, did you really expect me to use a needle? Reckless as always. Oh, please. Like I'd let some cheap wounds slow me down. Your arrogance will be your downfall. Then I'll make sure to enjoy the fall." Kaori sighed, placing a hand on her chest. "You're impossible, Rimuru." Shizuku, still blushing slightly, murmured, "That was reckless but impressive." Meld clapped his hands. "All right, one by one, step forward and show me your status plate," he instructed. "I need to evaluate your abilities so we can assign training that suits each of you." The students exchanged glances, some excited, others nervous. They were still processing the fact that they had been transported to another world, and now they had to reveal their strengths, or lack thereof. "Lady Aiko, please step forward," Meld called. Aiko Hatayama, their homeroom teacher, stiffened but quickly nodded. Though she deeply cared for her students, she was well aware of her own limitations. She hesitated for a moment before saying, "Show status." A translucent screen appeared before her, revealing her stats. Name: Aiko Hatayama. Age: 25. Race: Human. Class: Farmer, Teacher. Level: 5. Stats: Strength: 10. Vitality: 15. Defense: 10. Agility: 10. Magic: 100. Magic Defense: 50. Skills and abilities: Earth Magic, Intermediate, Plant Growth Acceleration. Support Magic, Basic, Healing Magic. Weak. Meld's mouth twitched. A farmer? He forced himself not to laugh. The students exchanged glances. Some tried to suppress their amusement, but a few snickered. "This is surprising," Meld muttered, rubbing the back of his head. "Well, magic is relatively high, but..." he shook his head. Aiko sighed but remained composed. "I don't mind. My job is to support my students, not fight." Kaori Shirasaki, always kind-hearted, gave her teacher a reassuring smile. "Sensei, you're amazing. If we ever need food or healing, you'll be invaluable." Hajime nodded in agreement, but some of the other students, like Daisuke Hayama and Kutaro, smirked at her low combat potential. Meanwhile, Rimuru watched with mild amusement. A teacher too weak to protect her students. Laughable, Azra whispered into his mind. "She won't survive if left alone. Should I manipulate a few probabilities for entertainment?" "Not interested," Rimuru replied mentally, arms crossed. "Let's just watch how this unfolds." Meld cleared his throat. "Next, Kaori Shirasaki, step forward." Kaori nodded, stepping up confidently. She placed her hand on the status plate. Name: Kaori Shirasaki. Age: 17. Race: Human. Class: Healer. Level: 10. Stats: Strength: 15. Vitality: 20. Defense: 15. Agility: 20. Magic: 100. Magic Defense: 100. Skills and abilities: Healing Magic, Advanced. Support Magic. Light Magic. Barrier Magic. A murmur spread through the students. "Whoa, her magic stats are insane." As expected from Kaori, she's always been amazing. Kaori was one of the most admired girls in their class, and her status only reinforced that. Kuki Amanogawa smiled, clearly pleased that Kaori had great abilities. "Amazing, Kaori," Kuki said proudly. Kaori, however, looked embarrassed. "I am not that strong, I can only heal." Hajime sighed. Well, healing is crucial. Rimuru chuckled softly, casting a teasing glance at Shizuku. What do you think, Shizuku? Think she'll survive longer than you in a real fight? Shizuku rolled her eyes but smirked. We'll see. Meld nodded approvingly. A high magic stat is valuable. You'll be essential for support. Next, he called, Daisuke Hayama, step forward. Daisuke smirked, walking up with an air of arrogance. He placed his hand on the status plate. Name: Daisuke Hayama. Age: 17. Race: Human. Class: Fire Mage. Level: 20. Stats: Strength: 60. Vitality: 70. Defense: 65. Agility: 75. Magic: 150. Magic Defense: 120. Skills and abilities: Fire Magic: Intermediate, Flame Bullet Firewall. Heat Wave: Nice. My stats are pretty damn good, Daisuke grinned. The students nodded in agreement. Not bad, Meld admitted. Fire magic is powerful in combat. Well, obviously, Daisuke boasted, glancing smugly at Hajime. Some people here are just useless extras. Hajime frowned but remained silent. Rimuru, however, narrowed his eyes. HMPH. Trash is still trash, even if it's wrapped in fire. Daisuke scowled. What was that? Rimuru smirked, not bothering to explain. Meld, sensing tension, quickly moved on. Shizuku Yagashi, step forward. Shizuku stepped up gracefully, placing her hand on the status plate. Name: Shizuku Yagashi. Age: 17. Race: Human. Class: Swordswoman, Samurai. Level: 20. Stats: Strength: 80. Vitality: 75. Defense: 70. Agility: 120 plus Magic: 50. Magic Defense: 60. Skills and abilities: Swordsmanship, Advanced, Body Enhancement. Lightning Step. Instant Reflex. Sword Aura Barrier. Magic, Basic. Meld's eyes widened slightly. Now this is impressive. The students murmured in admiration. As expected from Shizuku, one of them said. She's one of the strongest among us. Shizuku, ever humble, nodded. I've trained since childhood. Kaori beamed. Shizuku, you're amazing. Even Kuki looked impressed. You'll be a great fighter. Rimuru, however, leaned in slightly, his smirk widening. So you're fast, huh? I wonder if that speed helps in other activities. Shizuku immediately blushed. Hey, stop that. The students blinked, confused, but Kaori giggled. Your seduction tactics are crude but effective, Azrid teased. Shut up, Rimuru replied internally, enjoying Shizuku's reaction. Meld Loggins, the Knight Commander, held the status plates, reading aloud each student's abilities. One by one, students stepped forward, placed their hands on the plate, and their stats were revealed in a golden light. The nobles and knights observing them whispered amongst themselves, evaluating the strength of the newly summoned heroes. After a while, Meld glanced at his list and called out, Kuki Yamanogawa, step forward. The crowd quieted as a tall, confident boy with blonde hair and blue eyes stepped up to the front. Kuki Yamanogawa was the school's golden boy, always seen as a leader. He placed his hand on the status plate, and a radiant glow filled the room. Name: Kuki Yamanogawa. Age: 17. Race: Human. Class: Hero. Level: 1. Strength: 100. Vitality: 100. Defense: 100. Agility: 100. Magic: 150. Magic Defense: 100. Skills and abilities: Holy Swordsmanship, Advanced Expert Level Sword Combat with Divine Energy Enhancement. Limit Break, temporarily increases power tenfold, making the user nearly invincible. Body Enhancement, enhances physical abilities for combat. Light Magic, strong offensive and support-based light spells. Holy Slash, a powerful light element sword strike. Hero's Will, enhances mental resistance and battle morale. Charisma, naturally draws people to follow him. Gasps echoed through the hall. Meld's eyes widened in disbelief. This is incredible. Even at level 1, his stats surpass my own. He turned to the gathered nobles and knights. This boy is the strongest in the kingdom right now. Kuki stood tall, proud of himself as admiration filled the room. Students from his class clapped, some giving him pats on the back. Wow, Kuki-kun, You're amazing, Kaori. His childhood friend, beamed. Of course, he is. He's a hero. Kyutaru, one of Kuki's close friends, added. The students, though happy for him, exchanged uneasy glances. Shizuku Yagashi, one of the strongest among the girls, frowned slightly. He's getting ahead of himself again, she thought. Meanwhile, Hajime Nagumo watched quietly, his expression neutral. He didn't hate Kuki, but he disliked how easily Kuki reveled in attention. Of course, he's the strongest. Everything always goes his way. Rimuru, however, scoffed, standing with his arms crossed. A smirk played on his lips as he watched Kuki bask in his glory. That idiot sure loves the sound of his own praise, Ezra's voice echoed in Rimuru's mind, laced with amusement. Pathetic. Rimuru muttered under his breath. Meld, still overwhelmed, checked his list and called out, next, Hajime Nagumo. A hush fell over the room. Hajime tensed. He hesitated, but Kaori gave him an encouraging nod. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward and placed his hand on the plate. A weak glow flickered across the surface before his status appeared. Name, Hajime Nagumo. Age, 17. Race, human. Class, Synergist Craftsman Transmutation Specialist. Level, 2. Strength, 10. Vitality, 10. Defense, 10. Agility, 10. Magic, 10. Magic Defense, 10. Skills. Transmutation, can manipulate and reshape inorganic materials. Basic physical abilities, equivalent to a normal human. Silence. Then, laughter. Ha! What kind of useless class is that? Daisuke Hayama sneered. 10 in every stat? That's pathetic. Kyutaru laughed, joined by several others. This guy isn't even a warrior, he's just a blacksmith. Hajime clenched his fists. He knew he wasn't strong, but the open ridicule made it worse. Kaori stepped in, her voice firm. Hajime-kun's class is useful too. Just because he isn't a fighter doesn't mean. But it does mean he's weak. Kuki's voice was quieter, smug. Only a few heard it: Shizuku, Kaori, and Rimuru. Shizuku frowned. Kuki, that's unnecessary. Rimuru's smile vanished. The temperature seemed to drop as a dark, suffocating aura spread behind Kuki and Kyutaru. A menacing pressure filled the air. The students froze as they turned to see Rimuru Nagumo, his body cloaked in black mist, eyes glowing dangerously. Mind your words, hero, Rimuru said coldly. His voice held an edge that sent a chill down everyone's spine. Kuki, unfazed by his own arrogance, scoffed, as if you can do anything. More laughter erupted, this time directed at Rimuru and Hajime. Daisuke sneered. Look at these two losers. One's a weakling, and the other's some edgy freak. Kyutaru smirked. I bet Rimuru's stats are trash too, he just acts tough. Kuki crossed his arms. If you want to shut me up, Rimuru, get stronger and fight me. Shizuku and Kaori immediately stepped in. Enough, both of you. Rimuru tilted his head, chuckling darkly. You know what, I think I'll do that. Kuki smirked. How long do I have to wait, forever? Rimuru laughed. No, just a moment. With that, he turned and walked past him, approaching Meld. Check it. Meld sighed. Fine, but don't get yourself injured, boy. Rimuru smirked. We'll see. He placed his hand on the status plate. The golden light shone brighter than ever before, fluctuating unnaturally. Meld's face paled as he read the status, his hands trembled. His class, fallen hero, his voice wavered. He continued, but the deeper he read, the more terrified he became. Name: Rimuru Nagumo. Age: 17. Race: fully demonoid human. Class: fallen hero. Level: cannot be counted due to class fallen hero. Strength: 1000. Vitality: infinite defense, 300 agility, 300. Magic: 500k plus magic defense. Absolute nullification, except for draconic power. Ultimate skill: only Rimuru can see. 1. Azra, Mistress of Knowledge, a dark and twisted counterpart to Raphael, manipulative and sarcastic. Guides Rimuru through painful, indirect means to ensure his growth. 2. Void King Beelzebub, a fusion of Gluttony King Beelzebub and Void God Azathoth, granting Rimuru the ability to consume, erase, and distort reality itself. Magic and abilities. Demonic magic, demonic spirit magic. Demonic holy magic, spatial manipulation, time distortion. Reality warping, existence erasure. Meld's breath hitched as he read each line. His face turned ghostly pale, sweat dripping down his forehead. This isn't possible, he whispered. Gasps filled the hall. Students stared, horrified. Even the knights stepped back. Rimuru leaned in close, smirking. What's wrong, Commander? Something scaring you? Meld gulped. He forced his voice steady. This boy is beyond anything in this world. The entire hall fell silent. Kuki's pride crumbled. He couldn't deny it anymore. Rimuru wasn't just strong, he was terrifying. Rimuru turned to Kuki, his grin widening. You still want to fight me? Kuki clenched his fists, unable to answer. Rimuru chuckled. Didn't think so. Other students stared at him in disbelief. His status had just been revealed, and the weight of his existence settled upon them like an unshakable force. Meld Loggins, the Knight Commander, swallowed hard. A fallen hero, demonoid human. He had never heard of such a race before. But the sheer pressure emanating from Rimuru told him that this wasn't just some normal student, he was dangerous. The students stood frozen, their faces reflecting a mixture of awe, fear, and disbelief. Kaori stepped forward, her voice hesitant yet filled with admiration. Rimuru-kun, you're amazing. She smiled softly, relieved that Hajime now had someone strong beside him. Shizuku, arms crossed, gave a small nod. I knew you were strong, but this is beyond anything I expected. Her gaze lingered on Rimuru, her heartbeat quickening. No wonder she quickly shook off her thoughts. Kuki Amanogawa gritted his teeth. How can someone like you exist? A fallen hero? What does that even mean? His frustration was evident. He had always been considered the strongest in the class, but now Rimuru had shattered that illusion. Kyutaru, standing beside Kuki, scoffed. This is ridiculous. He's not even human. A demonoid human? What the hell is that? Daisuke Hayama, Hajime's main bully, sneered. Figures the freak's brother is a monster. His voice was laced with venom, but there was a hint of fear behind his words. The whispers among the students grew. A fallen hero, that means he was once the strongest but lost everything, right? Then why is he still so powerful? Is he even on our side? I don't want to get on his bad side. Aiko, their teacher, finally found her voice. All right, everyone, calm down. But before she could finish, Rimuru took a step forward, his gaze locking onto Kuki. Rimuru chuckled, his smirk widening. You still want to fight me? Kuki clenched his fists, his body trembling with a mix of anger and helplessness. Rimuru tilted his head, amusement flickering in his golden eyes. Didn't think so. He turned, addressing the entire group. Remember what I said earlier? If I notice anything suspicious, I'll erase this kingdom. His eyes gleamed with an eerie glow. I'm adding one more condition. His gaze snapped back to Kuki. If anyone insults Hajime or me, consider that a warning. The weight of his words crushed the air. The students, even those from bullies, took a step back. Meld sighed, stepping forward. Calm down, boy. There's no need to destroy anything over this. Rimuru's smirk didn't fade. Sure, he turned back to Kuki, lowering his voice. But remember, these aren't just meaningless words. His smirk twisted into something darker before he walked past Kuki. Just as Rimuru was about to take a seat, Kuki suddenly shouted, I'm taking you on, Rimuru. Rimuru stopped. Slowly, he turned his head, amusement flickering in his gaze. Oh? He chuckled. Do you have a death wish? Shizuku quickly stepped in. Kuki, don't be an idiot, you saw his status. Kaori added, there's no need to fight among ourselves. But Kuki refused to back down. I'm challenging you to a duel, Rimuru. Rimuru sighed, rubbing his temple. Do you even know what you're doing? I do, Kuki shot back. You're too arrogant, and someone needs to put you in your place. Meld, who had been silently observing, finally spoke. There will be no fighting among yourselves. Suddenly, Kuki grabbed a small rock from the ground and hurled it straight at Rimuru. Without even glancing, Rimuru caught it effortlessly. The students gasped. Idiot, Rimuru muttered. You're far too arrogant. Then, with a flick of his wrist, he tossed the rock behind him. Boom! The rock, no larger than a fist, collided with the black stone wall at the edge of the training ground. It shattered into dust upon impact, leaving behind a massive crack. Silence. The students could only stare at the destroyed wall in shock. If that had been a person instead of a wall. Rimuru yawned, walking over to a large rock in the training ground and sitting down. TCH. Waste of time. Meld quickly stepped forward, clapping his hands. All right. That's enough. His voice carried authority, breaking the tense atmosphere. We are here to train, not fight each other. Aiko, still shaken, nodded. Yes, everyone, listen to Commander Meld. No more reckless behavior. The students hesitated before finally settling down. Kuki, fists clenched, remained silent. He had lost before the fight even started. Meld cleared his throat. Now, let's begin today's training. And if anyone wants to get stronger, he eyed Kuki. Then do it the right way. Kuki looked up. How? Through training and battle experience, Meld answered. The tension finally eased as the students prepared for their training. Rimuru, sitting comfortably, smirked to himself. This world is going to be fun. A week had passed since the status reveal, yet the tension in the training grounds remained. The students trained under Meld and his knights, honing their skills. However, Rimuru refused to participate in the standard training, much to the frustration of certain individuals, especially Kuki Amanogawa. When Rimuru approached Meld and requested to personally train his brother, Hajime, the knight commander hesitated. The mere presence of Rimuru still unsettled him. But seeing Rimuru's strength, and fearing the consequences of refusal, he reluctantly agreed. Shizuku, intrigued by Rimuru's power, also requested to join Hajime's training. Meld, seeing no harm in it, granted her permission. While Hajime, Rimuru, and Shizuku trained separately, the rest of the students continued their own regimen. Kuki, determined to prove himself, engaged in a mock battle against 3 knights. With his natural talent and high stats, he overwhelmed them, earning the admiration of his classmates. Kyutaru followed suit, dueling a knight and managing to win, though with more difficulty. Meanwhile, Kaori was practicing healing magic with one of the female healers. She successfully restored minor wounds, earning praise from her instructor. After their training sessions, Kuki and Kyutaru sat together, discussing their progress. That Rimuru, who does he think he is? Kuki muttered, frustration evident in his tone. Kyutaru scoffed. I don't know, but I hate him and his brother. Hajime should just stay weak like before. Kuki clenched his fists. And yet, Hajime's growing stronger. Rimuru is the reason. His expression darkened. I can't stand those two. Kyutaru nodded. Same, man. Meanwhile, in their secluded training area, Rimuru faced both Hajime and Shizuku. Hajime lunged forward, swinging his wooden sword at Rimuru's midsection. Shizuku followed immediately, aiming a precise strike at his shoulder. But Rimuru moved like a ghost. He effortlessly sidestepped Hajime, barely tilting his head to avoid Shizuku's attack. Without even countering, he corrected their stances mid-motion, placing a light touch on Hajime's wrist and nudging Shizuku's foot into proper positioning. Sloppy, Rimuru commented with a teasing smirk. Hajime, you're telegraphing your attacks too much. Shizuku, your form is better, but you're hesitating. Shizuku clicked her tongue but stepped back, breathing heavily. All right, I need a break. She sat down on the grass, wiping sweat from her forehead. Hajime, still catching his breath, turned to Rimuru. How do you know so much about martial arts and magic? You never took classes back in our world. Rimuru gave him a sly grin. I have my ways. He leaned in slightly, his blue eyes gleaming. But does it really matter? Shizuku let out a tired sigh. This is tough, but I can feel myself improving. Rimuru smirked. Of course. Strength isn't given, it's taken. He crossed his arms. And you two are getting stronger. Hajime, curious, grabbed his status plate and activated it. Status. Name. Hajime Nagumo. Age. 17. Race. Human. Class. Synergist Craftsman Transmutation Specialist. Level. 8. Stats. Strength. 20. Vitality. 20. Defense. 15. Agility. 15 Magic. 20 Magic Defense. 15 Skills. Transmutation. allows him to manipulate and reshape inorganic materials at will. Basic physical abilities, normal human level, low-class swordsmanship, still a beginner. Shizuku glanced at his status and smiled. See? You leveled up, Hajime. Hajime stared at his plate in disbelief before smiling slightly. Yeah, I did. Rimuru chuckled. Told you. Now, I'll be going for a bit. Hajime blinked. Where? Bathroom, Rimuru answered casually before walking off. With Rimuru gone, Daisuke Hayama and his group approached Hajime and Shizuku. Well, if it isn't the weakling and his babysitter, Daisuke sneered. Hajime tensed but remained silent. Shizuku narrowed her eyes. If Rimuru sees this, you'll regret it. Daisuke smirked. That arrogant bastard isn't here, is he? He glanced at his group. Let's remind this loser of his place. Kyutaru stepped forward, crossing his arms. Hajime, you've been ignoring people lately. I guess you're copying Rimuru now? Hajime frowned. I'm not. Kyutaru scoffed. Then why don't you fight back? He suddenly threw a punch. And Hajime dodged. Everyone froze. Even Hajime looked surprised at himself. Shizuku raised an eyebrow. Hajime, Daisuke's expression darkened. You think you're better than us now? He snapped his fingers, and his group rushed Hajime. Hajime dodged a few strikes, but he was outnumbered. They tackled him to the ground and started kicking him. Shizuku tried to step in, but one of the boys blocked her path. At that moment, Kaori and Kuki arrived. Kaori gasped. Stop it. The bullies hesitated for a moment but continued. Kuki stepped forward. Enough already. Whoosh. A sword flew through the air, embedding itself in the ground with a thunderous impact, cracking the stone beneath it. A cold voice followed. Do you guys ignore my warning? Everyone turned. Rimuru stood there, his eyes glowing with a terrifying intensity. Daisuke's face went pale. As Rimuru walked forward, a voice echoed in his mind. Are you going to kill them, master? Tempting, Rimuru thought back. You should. It would make things simpler. Oh, but then I wouldn't get to play with them. You enjoy making them squirm, don't you? Guilty as charged. Then make it slow. Rimuru smirked. I plan to. He stopped a few feet away from Daisuke, the air growing heavy. I warned you, didn't I? His voice was soft but laced with danger. Daisuke trembled. We were just. Rimuru took another step, and Daisuke flinched. I don't like repeating myself. His smirk turned sinister. So, tell me, do you want to die? Silence. The students stood frozen. Even Kuki, who usually had something to say, stayed quiet. Rimuru tilted his head. No answer. How disappointing. His golden eyes gleamed. Perhaps I should give you a taste of what death feels like. The shadows around him darkened, and a suffocating pressure filled the air. Daisuke fell to his knees, gasping. Shizuku, watching from the side, felt a chill run down her spine. This is terrifying. Kaori covered her mouth. Rimuru, stop. For a moment, Rimuru considered ignoring her, but then he sighed, stepping back. Daisuke collapsed, gasping for air, clutching his stomach as if trying to hold himself together. The other students, especially his group, stood frozen, their faces pale with fear. Rimuru sighed, stepping back, rolling his shoulders lazily. TCH. His smirk returned, dripping with arrogance. Consider this your final warning. The silence was suffocating. Then, you serious? Kuki's voice erupted, cutting through the tension. His fists clenched, his eyes blazing with disbelief. Were you actually trying to kill them? Rimuru arched a brow, then let out a mocking chuckle. Kill them? He tilted his head. Idiot. I was feeding them. His lips curled into a predatory grin. Now, killing them, that would be a different story. Kuki took a step forward, looking visibly upset. You don't have the right to kill others. We're heroes. We're supposed to protect people, not act like murderers. Rimuru's amusement faded, replaced by cold indifference. He turned to Kuki, his blue eyes glinting ominously. We? He scoffed. Oh, no, Kuki. He leaned in slightly, his voice dangerously soft. You're a hero. Not me. Kuki's breath hitched. I'm a fallen hero. Rimuru's smirk widened. And what was that about killing? If you think taking lives is wrong, Then don't go to war. Because war, my dear hero, is killing itself. That's not the same, Kuki shot back, his voice strained. Oh. Rimuru spread his arms. Then explain. Kuki opened his mouth, then stopped. He had no answer. Rimuru's smirk turned cruel. No answer, huh? Thought so. He turned away, eyes flickering toward Daisuke's group. You guys better run before I change my mind. Daisuke and his lackeys scrambled to their feet, barely able to stay upright. They bolted without hesitation, tripping over themselves in their panic. The other students watched in stunned silence. Kaori rushed to Hajime's side, kneeling beside him. Are you okay? She quickly began healing his wounds, her expression filled with concern. Shizuku frowned, guilt flashing in her eyes. I should have done something. Rimuru glanced at her, then smirked. Don't worry, you did something important. Shizuku blinked. What do you mean? Did Hajime avoid most of their attacks? Rimuru asked casually. Shizuku's eyes widened in realization. He did. See? Rimuru chuckled. That's growth. Kaori finished healing Hajime, and he slowly sat up. Thanks, Kaori. Rimuru stretched out his hand. Your first real fight, Hajime, not bad. Hajime hesitated, then grabbed Rimuru's hand, allowing him to pull him up. Suddenly, Commander Meld's voice rang out. Everyone, gather up. I have an important announcement. Rimuru, Hajime, Kaori, and Shizuku made their way toward the knights, where the rest of the class had already gathered. Kuki stood near the front, arms crossed, his jaw tight with frustration. Meld cleared his throat, his expression serious. We'll be heading to the Great Orcus dungeon for training. The students murmured among themselves, some excited, others nervous. Rimuru, however, merely smirked. Things are finally getting interesting. Oh. Excited, are we? A familiar voice echoed in his mind. Azra. His ever-mocking ultimate skill. Or is it that you can't wait to see how much suffering you can inflict? Rimuru chuckled internally. Maybe both. To be continued .